or their staff in that school and see who has been in contact with that student. So this graph is only showing you the blue part is the cases. Like if you look at August, it's for 11 school days. We started August 17th. We're tracking the numbers. We did quarantine prior to this due to athletics, but this is based on during school. The cases, and the orange is going to be your quarantine students. You can then look at September. September was a lot seemed lower. We were doing better. I think we learned in August how to socially distance better in our classrooms and how to maybe not send home so many students. Then you can go look at October, and then we had 15 days there because we had fall break. But then you come to November, we really saw a huge increase coming back from fall break. And that's when we see our spikes about 10 days after we are out. So we're kind of anxious about next Monday to see what it's going to look like next week. But I just wanted to give you an idea that I know when we send you numbers and you see these really high numbers of people out, a lot of time it's just a lot of quarantine. We average about 3 to 4 positive cases of students in a building at one time. It's usually never over that. If we do, we are looking specifically at those cases to see if it's a cluster and if we need to close down classrooms or what we need to do. We're very fortunate. We have not even had the thought of closing down the school yet. We have shut down a few classrooms. If you notice on that last page, it does kind of break down what those positive cases look like. We had 60 student positive cases and 14 staff positive cases that we had to contact trace on. So 74 times we have gone into the schools and had to do the tape measure, and they had to call those parents and let them know to come pick up their students immediately and to send them home for 14 days. That's a lot of work. And the nurses are doing this on top of their normal job. So I'm just very, very thankful that they're in the schools and they're able to handle that. And they're just doing amazing work. We've quarantined a total of 554 students. I did want to notate that 84 of those are due to transportation. On the school bus, it's extremely hard to socially distance. And you know, those seats are really close together. So you have one positive case, you're probably knocking out 12 kids. And that's just how it is. But we have gotten better about that. And they are wearing their masks, so we rarely ever see any positive cases come from a quarantine bus student. We also, some of those numbers are spiked with quarantine students because we have had a couple of athletic teams that have had to quarantine, and then also elementary classrooms. We have shut down 4 classrooms total, 2 for Martin Primary, 1 for Martin Elementary, and 1 from Sharon. So it's all been elementary classrooms just because we maybe have seen a spike and we wanted to go ahead and nip it in the bud and get them home before it spread to anybody else. We have seen today our numbers are, I would say, pretty good. I'm excited about our numbers. We only have total in the county 18 positive students, 7 positive staff, and then 147 quarantine students and 14 quarantine staff. And that includes students and staff that are quarantined due to community outbreaks and things like that. So a total of 189 out today. We had seen a spike November 19th that was closer to 400, so we are excited with 189. We also received word yesterday that the quarantine time has changed. That is also good news because that means that our students and our staff are going to be able to come back to the classroom sooner. With the new quarantine, instead of 14 days, it is 10 days for a close contact. And then for a household contact, it goes down if they're not able to isolate from 24 days to 20 days. Also, with that being said, with our staff especially, if they are willing to go get a test, they can take a test between day 5 and 7 of that quarantine. And if it comes back negative, they can come back to school on day 8, which this is going to be great for our students and our classrooms and also subs. You know, we're very short on subs, so this will help eliminate the need for that as much. So good things happening. Our numbers, we're watching them every day, and we're always looking to make sure that we're trying to keep everyone as safe as possible, but wearing those masks and socially distancing, I think we have seen the schools are doing what they're supposed to be doing. We just need to keep it up, and that way keep our numbers lower. Do y'all have any questions? Yes.
One of the things that I'm hearing, I think we're all hearing, is about the quarantining and is it helping or not helping? Is it intrusive or not? Have we determined that there's been a positive reaction from somebody who's quarantined. That's not the question.
We have data that shows the positivity rate for students that we've had to quarantine that ended up being positive with the virus.
So they have been,
Yes.
we have been having positive cases.
Yeah, so we tracked it up until October 31st, and we had 8 positive that came out of the quarantine. But after October 31st, that's when we kind of, in November, we had to shut down some classrooms, and that's where we were seeing if we had a positive case in the classroom, especially in elementary classroom, because they're more, they're together all day and in their pods, and they're not wearing their masks in their pods, so therefore it's more likely that it's going to spread. So quarantining is helping keep more kids in the classroom because we are seeing positive rates.
What is our transmission rate for children who test? Do we know what our transmission rate is? The children who test positive in the classroom and the subsequent people within 6 feet. I don't have the most recent. We looked at that at the end of October.
And
It's relatively low.
And it's hard for that data to be completely accurate, just because when we see a lot of high school students that are positive, we know sometimes they're not on quarantine like they're supposed to, and then they're hanging out with groups outside of that. I feel like our data is more accurate in elementary groups, just because they're not hanging out as much, they don't have sports, they don't have different things. And that is where I do see more positive cases coming from a classroom where there's already been a positive case. I will say, I think our pods are the best thing we could have possibly done, because whenever we see a positive case, we go ahead and quarantine that pod, meaning they sit within 6 feet of each other, but away from the other pods. And more times than none, we will see another positive case come from that pod. So that is working, which is really great. The high school, I don't know so much because they're only around those students about, 45 minutes to 50 minutes, and it's hard to see if it's actually coming from that or if it's coming from a community.
So this day 5 to 7, take a test, come back day 8 at negative result for staff and teachers, or is that for?
Well, it can, it's open for everyone.
The students are included.
Yeah, students are included.
As long as they're asymptomatic.
Right, and that's the biggest thing. You have to be asymptomatic for any of that to work.
I'm assuming athletics, football, or school.
We had a couple basketball teams, and then yes, a football.
We've had 2 football teams, 3 football teams, and we're 1 middle, 2 high.
Yeah, and so those 2 were actually in the summer, so they weren't included on these numbers. Those were in July and August, so we actually started contact, but at that time, I didn't have to turn it into the health department, so this is why the data only goes from August 17th.
Thank you. I would just say that Bethany and the nurses have done an outstanding job. We almost talk daily.
Yes.
Because there'll be a question or a situation that comes up that either I need to run by her or her run by me, and we've been able to talk through that and come up with a good plan. But it's been a lot of work, and I will say, once again, kudos to our building people, our teachers, our principals. We've not been perfect in everything. We've got a whole lot more light than some of our neighboring districts have. I shared with a couple of board members, 2 more districts shut down today until the first of the year. So we've been able to keep our buildings open. That's our goal. We intend to do that and do that as safely as we can. Starting basketball season has been a challenge now that we've moved sports from outdoors to indoors. Cross country and football, being spectator events outside is a little bit different scenario than coming inside. And so we've had to alter what we thought we could do at first. We kind of had to restrict that even more because we want our students to be able to play safely, even if that means limiting our crowds even more than we are now. So we'll continue to do that. Look at that. We had a conference call superintendents did with the state on Monday, and it was basically focused around winter sports. And this came from, I guess, TDOE, the governor's office. Basically, the concerns they have health-wise with our winter sports was crowd compliance and crowd sizes. And basically, we were hearing that folks were not adhering to those regulations that were put out there. And basically, they told districts, you have a chance to control this locally. And if you can't, we'll be coming in and restricting those. And that's what we don't want to see. Everyone wants to stay healthy, but last year we shut down all of our sports in winter and spring. And I think if everyone will take responsibility and do what we're supposed to, we won't have to do it this time. So just thank you, Bethany, and all the nurses.
Yes, thank you so much. Very good job. And we are in so much better shape than a lot of our neighbors. Next item, agenda item is school board policy 3.210. We approved an exception last month on a naming matter with the intention to review the policy and make recommendations. You do have a draft of a recommended policy change before you. And if I'm reading this correctly, it says, are you going to talk about it?
Go ahead.
Okay. It's striking the first, if I'm reading this correctly, it's striking the first requirement that the person be deceased. And then on item 4, I think it says.
Everything in red is being omitted.
Okay, everything is being omitted.
Yes.
Okay, green's being added.
Green is what we.
Okay, all right. That's what I was trying to explain. Good. All right. Is there a motion to approve this policy? Is there a second? Second. Moved in a second. Okay, any questions or discussion about the policy change?
I will just say that after we have a second reading next month and then we approve it, then my recommendation would be for us to form a small committee where we have requests from communities in the future, we can deal with it at that level.
Okay.
And bring it to the board.
Okay. This would be the first reading. It does require two to have a change. Any additional questions or comments about this policy change? All in favor of approving the first reading, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The first reading is approved. This will come again before us next month for a second reading. If then approved, it will become policy. Thank you. The second policy under review is policy 6.505. It deals with students in foster care. This is once again a first reading. This is a new policy.
We're just following the new requirements passed down from the state. And so this, TSBA has sent all school systems a recommended policy. And so that's what you see. The standard policy we're going to use across the state.
Is there a motion to approve the first reading of this policy 6.505?
I would just say one thing, probably the most important part of that is sometimes you may get a foster child that you enroll, and because of a lot of issues, they may be living in one community, but it'd be recommended that they continue to go to school, maybe in another community where they were at one time. And we're responsible to transport them. So for example, child's living in Martin, they're put in foster care in Gleason, they want to continue to go in Martin, we would bus them. That's part of this law.
Okay.
So that's the biggest thing I see.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Any questions about this policy on first reading? Question, comments? All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The first reading of policy 6.505 is approved. It will come back on the agenda again next month for second reading. Next agenda item is committee reports. The only thing that I have at the present time is the fact that we will be looking at a planning session next month in January, late January, 1st of February. So be looking at your calendar, things like that. We also need to look at potential policy review. We conducted that last year. I believe it may be an annual or semi-annual requirement. We'll be looking at that. We may have that coming up, as well as reviewing our 5-year plan. All of that can be lumped into one or separate. So receive that on your radar. We will be needing to set that meeting up later next month. I do want to say, I think Ms. Eddings is here or was here. Okay. Thank you all for your help and discussion relative to the recent work with the fiber broadband initiative in our county. I think we all had a say into that and helped with that. So to the extent that you help them help out to make the decision, I want to thank you for that. I think we won't be seeing dividends next month, but we will be down the road. So thank you all for your help in pushing for that as well. Any other committee reports? I don't think we have any on the agenda. Ms. Frazier, we can.
Yeah,
Next.
I have a few things. I asked Patricia to put in you all's packet. You should see a copy of an email that I received from Mr. Davidson, and then an itinerary that came from Coach Askins at Westview. We approved a couple months ago for Westview girls to play in a Christmas tournament in Gatlinburg. They normally travel somewhere during the holidays and play. And we discussed as a board that we would revisit that just to make sure close to that time that everyone was still on board with that. I wanted to share with you some of the requirements. This, I don't say, makes you a little uneasy. This is the first time we ventured back into somewhat, I would say, a normal setting where we have students going and spending the night and participating as they normally would. But it's still, when I say normal, it's not normal. As you see in what's happening here, during this tournament, there'll only be 2 participating schools allowed in the gym at one time, and they'll clear everything out. Everyone in the gym is required to wear a mask at all times except the 10 players participating in the game and the officials. Everyone else will be wearing masks. Coaches and school officials have encouraged, and we're working with families. A lot of the players are going to be riding with their own families up there in their vehicles, and even staying with their parents in hotel rooms or cabins or whatever they have rented. We will have some students and parents who won't go, and we'll be housing them in a hotel. So that is, it says December 19th through the 23rd. That 19th is Saturday, 23rd being a Tuesday, but talking today, they're planning on, they were hoping things would be better. They would go up on Saturday, do maybe a fun event that night, go to one of those dinners and shows, but that's not going to be feasible. So they're really leaving Sunday, and they play Monday and Tuesday, they'll return. So I don't have a problem if you all tell me as board, you make that decision, move forward, I can do that. I just know that once we start doing that, we've got cheerleading competition coming in Florida. We've got some things coming up that we just need to make sure that we're all on the same page moving forward. So I guess my wish would be just to hear you all's feedback. Kim and John being in Martin, I don't know if anyone's reached out to you all about that, wanting us to go ahead and move forward. I know we'd like to see that.
I know one of us has a kid playing on it. So, I know, I will say, Coach Haskins has done an excellent job of following protocol since day one. And as a parent, I think we need to go see this trip through, considering that all protocols are followed. There's nothing out of ordinary that pops up. I have full faith in our coaching staff and our administrative staff at Westview to keep following the things they're supposed to do.
What about the other teams? I guess that'd be my question. Like do they have the same protocols?
Well, the other teams that are participating, in essence, the only interaction we'll have with another school is actually when we play them. So once, we play team A and team B plays, they're allowed to come in 30 minutes before the game, and the game's played, then they're going to make everybody leave, and 2 more schools will come in. So you can't stay and watch games.
Spectators, like how's that going to work?
And where spectators will be required to wear masks at all times, and they'll be limiting the crowd like we do. Everyone is supposed to be following no more than 33% capacity. And normally, in talking with Coach Haskins, normally these Christmas tournaments are not really highly attended. It's usually just parents over the holidays. So usually there's not a large crowd in them, but they will be limited to it.
Mr. Lewis, you may be able to answer this. Is this Tennessee only? Because I know at one time that was a discussion.
I don't know. I'm not sure on that.
I knew that one of the reasons that this tournament was wanted to be, we wanted to participate in was geographic, and I say geographically, I mean statewide tournament, trying to keep, we're only going to South Carolina, Arizona, hitting different hot spots. But I could be wrong. Don't.
The original plan was to go to South Carolina.
So I just wanted to bring that to you all. You all have already approved it unless there's any pushback or concerns that I think they've got some preparation that precautions they've made, and I think they'll continue with that.
If I don't hear any comments, I'm going to assume that means that perhaps Mr. Frazier can continue as It stands.
And I'm sure the administrative staff and coaches will be in touch prior to December 19th. Something changes and we'll change. But right now, we think we'll do it.
Is that okay with everybody? All right, okay, thank you, Mr.
Okay.
President, on that matter.
Yeah, just a couple of other things. We mentioned this at a couple of our board meetings where the law changed where everyone has to undertake a background check and go through fingerprinting. That was an issue because there are not any sites closer than Jackson that do that. Mr. Kelly has had several conversations with the sheriff, and our sheriff's department been gracious enough to house all of our folks out there, and we've almost got our fingerprinting completed. We think we're gonna have most of that done prior to Christmas. Probably of 200 plus folks, Jeff, is that right? 200, 250 maybe? 250, which has saved us from having to travel and let teachers out of school, those kinds of things. So we look forward to that happening. That's all I have.
Board member have any other business to bring before the body? Nothing change in Maddox Technologies assistance. Thank you for your helping this afternoon.
We got the brains.
It's gonna work. Definitely pretty one anyway. All right, any other business? If there's not any objection, I'll declare this meeting to be adjourned.
He was telling on himself the other day. He said, this is his normal day. He comes in from his shower and goes,